Shannon, on a scale of 1 to 10, how sold are you on Giannis as a playoff superstar?
I'm a 10. The way I judge it, Skip, the way I look at it is that once you become a superstar, even if you don't perform at that level in the playoff, you're still a superstar. We just judge you more harshly. We just critique you with a sterner voice. And that's what we're doing with Giannis, because we saw what he did in the regular season in the process of winning those 2 MVPs. And the numbers that he put up come playoff time didn't match what he did in the regular season. And so that's why we judge him so harsh. Skip, for a guy that can't do this, he can't shoot threes. He doesn't have a great mid-range. He's terrible at the free throw lines. The guy has 2 regular season MVPs. He's a 3 or 4-time first-team All-NBA. He's a defensive player of the year. That's a huge accomplishment for a lot of guys. There are people to say that can't.
Okay.
So for me, he's a 10. Giannis is.
And we're talking about the playoffs.
Yes.
A consistent, trustable, dependable playoff superstar. You're a 10.
Skip, granted, if you look at what he did prior to him getting to Toronto, he played unbelievable. You're like, okay, Giannis is doing it. And then he got to Toronto. They did a great job.
This is 2 years ago.
2 years ago. They built the wall. We saw what Miami did.
And by the way, Toronto won 4 straight off.
Won 4 straight. But it was an aberration because they turned around and then ended up winning the finals. See, Skip, if we look at a team and they're like, okay, they beat Giannis, and then all of a sudden they flame out the next round, but that's not what they did. They went on and won it all. So it wasn't like Toronto was a trash team, and they had Kawhi, who many at that time said was a top 2 or top 3 player. So it wasn't like he got beat by a bunch of ragtags. For me, I look at it like this. Giannis is a tremendous player, and it does not matter what he does. If the other 2 guys don't come along, we saw Kevin Durant, Skip, that last game, if he'd have got any help from anybody else, we wouldn't be having this conversation, because Giannis wouldn't even be in the playoffs. Kevin Durant would. Just like when he had that historic night, that 49, 17, and 10, it was quietly Jeff Green's 8 of 9 from the 3 that helped get Kevin Durant across the finish line. If I'm not mistaken, Blake Griffin had 17 or 19.
He was good.
I've seen enough. I know what Giannis is. Yes, Skip, he doesn't have the flair. It's not pretty. See, guys go forward, and we wanted to be like Kobe. The thing where he just letting 3 stamp for Dame, or Mike gliding through the air, coming up on the one side and the tongue hanging out. Skip, Giannis is never going to be that. His game is never going to be aesthetically pleasing. It's going to be a lot of dunks and a lot of layups. They're like, man, I don't want to see no dunk. Shoot the 3. Because the dunk is not what it used to be. It's the 3-point shot. It's the acrobatic shot. But I'm a 10 on Giannis as a playoff MVP.
Okay.
Excuse me. A playoff superstar.
Yeah. Okay. I am not going to back down. I'm not going to back off. It's too early yet to say it's over, it's done, because I remind everybody, Milwaukee is still down 2-1.
Yeah, they definitely got to win Wednesday to make it a series.
And Milwaukee, I remind everyone, lost a game 1 by, 13, and game 2 by 10.
Correct.
So that was a minus 23. Then they won game 3. They were highly impressive at home by 20.
Correct.
There's still a minus 3 in point differential for this series, down 2-1. So this concept amuses me, because in my career, I've had this sort of impact or effect where I dig in on a player and maybe I'm harshly objective, and I have nothing against Giannis. I'm just not buying in yet.
Right.
And if you back to Jenny's question, scale of 1 to 10, I'm like a 4 in trustability as a superstar. Somebody I can trust every night to be a playoff superstar, to carry this team to this championship. He may make me eat all of these words I'm uttering right now, but I'm not ready to say no. I'm not ready to back off and give in to this, because in my career, sometimes I dig in so hard on a player that I turn them into sympathetic figures. And all I see on media reports that I just get barraged with is, it's time to give Giannis his due. And I feel like a lot of it is aimed at me. Like, it's time to quit slandering this man's name.
Right.
Well, I'm not slandering his name. I'm just saying, I'm sorry. History would scream at you right now. You better be careful.
Well, you look at it like, okay, if Giannis is what those regular season MVP says he is, he should be able to go further come playoff time than what he's been able to take Milwaukee.
Okay, so his overall playoff record, as we speak right now, is 33-28. Well, it doesn't measure up to back-to-back MVPs
Right.
or Defensive Player of the Year.
Right.
And again, I don't want to beat this to death, but just being completely, utterly, maybe over harshly objective, I look at his playoff flameouts. In his first 3 playoff runs, he lost, obviously they got knocked out. And he lost 4 games in the first year by 21 points a game. He was the average loss. The next time it was by 11 a game. The next time by 10 a game. So they weren't even coming close in their 4 losses to get knocked out. And then came the debacle of a disaster, of a huge disappointment, which was the 4 straight losses to Kawhi's Toronto. And I don't even want to belabor the numbers, but all of his MVP caliber, he'd won the MVP in the regular season. He couldn't shoot. He couldn't make free throws. He was shooting too many threes and shooting 19% from 3. And you know what happened? They just dared him to shoot 10-foot jump shots, and he just doesn't have that.
But let me ask you a question. If we'd had social media back in the 80s and people have asked you, where you are on Michael Jordan as a playoff superstar, what would you have said? Because in his first 10 playoff games, he was 1-9. So if they had asked you that question about Jordan, where would you have been?
I could already see it coming because I saw 63 against Larry Bird and company.
But he lost, Skip.
At the Garden.
You can't see this coming, Skip. Yeah. You saw it back-to-back 40-point ball games. There have been very few people that can say, you know what, I've got a 40-piece in the playoffs, let alone back-to-back.
Okay. I had seen Michael Jordan as a true freshman at North Carolina take the shot to win the game, the national championship game. I was sitting on press row courtside against Georgetown, Patrick Ewing and company. I saw him make that shot. Who's Mike Jordan? Oh, Michael Jordan.
But he wasn't even the best player on the team. That was James Worthy. But I also saw in 19...
Well, I don't know. I think they were all looking sideways like he's taking over.
I also saw, if you don't believe this, I saw Purvis Ellison lead LSU, Louisville to the national as a true freshman.
I was sitting courtside in Dallas,
and
Texas.
Everybody would have bet.
Yep.
Everybody would have bet. Purvis Ellison is the next big thing. It doesn't necessarily mean that, Skip. There's a lot of guys that play great in college, and it doesn't translate. Nobody saw Michael Jordan being this.
Okay, but we're 8 years in to Giannis. And we skipped over the bubble trouble that he had because they lost the first 3 to Miami, and he was abominable.
There. Yes.
And then he got hurt, and it didn't really matter because they were already down 0-3.
Correct.
And so he's had a fairly lengthy history in the postseason of not being trustable. And then now he's starting to take off. And against Brooklyn, James Harden was just, I don't even know why he was out there. He wasn't even trying to score. He wasn't trying to move, and I don't know how bad his hamstring was, but the point was when he didn't go and when Joe Harris completely disappeared, unless somebody else like Jeff Green or Blake, whoever else stepped up, there are other candidates too, but it was basically 1-on-5.
But think about what you just said. You just said if Jeff Green, Blake Griffin, and because Joe Harris basically couldn't throw the ball in the ocean, he couldn't do anything. Well, what about Giannis? When Chris Middleton and when those other guys when he had Bledsoe and he had those other guys, when they weren't doing it, you don't see, my thing is, Skip, you don't hold the other superstars to the same standard when they don't play well, when their team doesn't win, that you hold Giannis.
I saw Kevin Durant by himself single-handedly carry them in Game 5 and in Game 7.
No, he didn't, Skip.
Yes, he did.
It was Jeff Green's 27.
Okay, but he put up virtuoso numbers.
Yes.
Okay, and all the big shots down the stretch he took and made.
Did you not see what he did in Game 2?
Who?
Giannis against Phoenix.
Game 2, they lost.
They lost. Why?
Okay.
Because Holiday and Middleton did not play well. He gave you 40 and 15.
Yep, but it never got even close. It never felt like that the Bucks had a chance to win the game. And with Kevin Durant at the controls, with him operating 1-on-5, I just kept thinking, Brooklyn's just going to win this thing because he was taking the game over in ways I don't see Giannis take it over. So they had their 20-point win the other night.
He didn't take the game over?
Okay, no, he did not, because there were 2 runs. I dare you to go look at the 2 runs.
Right.
There's a big run at the end of the first half. And go look and see what happened. In that big run, he scored 2 of the points.
Right.
And then there's a bigger run in the third quarter. 24-6 run that put the game away. Go look at what happened. Drew Holiday scored or assisted on 22 of the 24 points. He did not fuel either of those big runs. He's one of those weird players. He scores a lot of points. He gets a lot of bunnies, like he'll get the offensive rebound. He'll reach over somebody's head and snatch the ball and just lay it back off the glass. And he scored. It was an all-time feat, what he pulled off, because he scored 14 field goals within 5 feet of the basket. Nobody in the last 25 years of playoffs or regular season has been able to accomplish that while scoring 30 or more points.
Right.
All 14 of your field goals come within 5 feet of the basket, and more power to him, because the closer the better. That's the object of the game.
I mean, people make it seem like Shaq was just throwing up threes.
Okay,
Where did Shaq's points come from?
Okay.
And nobody held that against Shaq.
No.
But we hold Giannis dunking and laying the ball up against him when we didn't do that for other bigs. Shaq was dominant, but Shaq wasn't throwing 17-foot sky hooks like Kareem.
He was not. But I covered all those big Shaq games in 2000, 01, 02, that run when he was the most dominating offensive force I ever saw. And it was hard to watch because it was football, basketball.
Right.
It was impossible to referee. And yet, when it was time to get a bucket down the stretch, if you needed to close the game, you just kept dumping it into him because they just couldn't stop it.
That's what they do to Giannis. Let me ask you a question. I didn't hear Chris Paul say we need to build a wall for Middleton. We need to do something special against Holiday. We need to do something special against Bobby Porter. He said we need to build a wall for who? We need to build a fence for who?
Okay.
Skip, 42 on 22 attempts in game 2. 41 on 23 attempts in game 3. Jordan needed 79 attempts to get his first a back-to-back 40-point game in the NBA Finals. This kid did it in 45 attempts.
I know, because they're point blank. There are a lot of layups and dunks.
Yes!
Yep.
But they count the same.
They do count the same. Chris Paul uttered those words after the game the other night because he was ashamed that he knows the playoff history of how Giannis can be stopped.
Yes!
And they ain't doing it.
Correct.
And it's almost like a message to our head coach or our staff like, hey, can't we figure out what everybody else has figured out in the past, the way to take him out of the game?
Skip, that's not Giannis. Giannis' job is not to say, okay, they're not building a wall, so let me not go. I'm going to get down here until you keep me out of this restricted area. I'm going down here. I'm going to lay the ball up. Ayton's in foul trouble.
Yep.
Y'all got these small guys trying to guard me. I'm just going to go over your back, get the rebound, put it back, and ones. Skip, look, I mean, you think about how many guys have had 40-point games in finals.
Okay.
Jerry West has 10. Bron has 8. Jordan has 6. Shaq 5. Elgin Baylor on down the line from that. Giannis has 2. This is his first finals.
Yep. Okay. And he may have another one. If Phoenix can't figure out how to stop him, he well could have another one. It well could be 2-2 going back to Phoenix.
Exactly.
So I will be the first to admit it's possible Giannis just isn't my cup of tea. Because I just don't like.
You like artistic, Skip.
Okay. And I listen. When he had that wide open dunk after P.J. Tucker went and, remember, Brook Lopez airballed it, and P.J. Tucker just gutted it out and saved it and kicked it back. And here comes Giannis charging down the lane, wide open, and dunks it. And here we are. And he goes back up the floor, mean mugging, like, really? I mean, it's just silly. It's like childish to me. It's not how superstars behave in my point of view.
Hey, no, Skip, you got to get the crowd into it.
Okay, mean mug on that. Boy, that was something that you pulled off. Woo, you dunked it wide open. Way to go. And then I've never seen a quote-unquote superstar who hyperventilates early in games, and they have to pull him out and sit him down so he can get his breath. You got to regain your breathing pattern. Calm down. Just calm down.
He's amped.
Okay, he is so amped. And so there's part of that I appreciate. But when we're talking about superstar, Killer Will, take over Gene, I just don't see it. So he's not my style of superstar. But he may make me eat all my words if he continues to score 40 a game. If he stays on this pace, let's see, what would it take? They've won 1. So if he has 3 more games in a row of 40 points, well, he's going to shatter all the records, and he will be the runaway MVP of this series.
Well, Skip, right now, he's averaging 34 and 14 on 62% shooting.
Okay.
That's pretty. So even if he doesn't get 40, if he just gets you his average, that's pretty damn good. Skip, you like Frank Sinatra?
Ernestine loves Frank Sinatra.
You know,
Me, I'm okay with him. Yeah.
Skip, he didn't have pyrotechnics. He didn't have a whole big group behind him. He just came and sat on the stool, smoked him a cigarette, and sung. As basic as you can get.
He did it his way.
As basic as you can get. But now you look at Michael, you look at Prince, you look at Beyonce. Same thing, still effective. That's Giannis. He ain't gonna fly through the air. He ain't gonna light no threes up. He's not gonna be acrobatic.
You were the first and the last in the history of the world to compare Giannis to Frank Sinatra.
You get my point.
Sort of.
I kind of liked it. I like Frank Sinatra.
Somewhere Ernestine is cringing.
Yeah, we need Ernestine to weigh in on that, Shannon. I don't know. Okay, good. You report back to us, Skip.
Thank you for watching. You can subscribe here to get the latest from the show, and be sure to check out more of the best clips from Undisputed, or go watch a few other segments from our other shows on FS1.